All right, guys, we're going to get started. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. Despite the torrential downpour that's going on outside, which is not really a torrential downpour, you guys would not believe how many calls and emails I got today about the rain. You know, like, it's just raining. Your car's waterproof. It's, you know, you got seat warmers, and, you know, just enjoy it.
Some of us melt.
Yeah, well, you know, some people could use a little rain here and there. But thank you all for coming. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys coming out in this stuff. Despite the rain, the danger of Californians driving in the rain is the other natural. Because apparently, you know, it's not blue skies here. Yeah. Yeah, well. So, a couple of housekeeping things. I'm going to let Serge dive into it because he's got a ton of stuff to share with you. Housekeeping, if there are any folks here that are members of This Week in Photo on the website, make sure you see Nicole because she will refund the ticket price to you. Because TWiP members get into these events free. So, if you're a TWiP member, make sure you see Nicole for your refund. Secondly, I want to thank Serge's, friends of both of ours, I guess, MacFun, who kind of helped make this thing possible. And, you know, brought Serge up here. And MacFun makes a bunch of software for Lightroom and Photoshop. One of them is Tonality Pro, and I think that is part of Serge's secret sauce to some of the stuff that he does. And you're going to be showing that tonight, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the second thing. Third thing is I want to thank our friends at Rocky Nook Publishing. They sent all these books over for me to give you guys. So we're going to do a raffle. The cool thing about the raffles now, if you've come to meetups before, you know that we were doing tickets. But now that I have everybody's name on the list, I don't need the tickets anymore. So we're going to do I have a little app that will do a random number, and I will pick a number. Nicole in the back will count down to that number, and that's the winner. So I'm trying to get a little high-tech and save a treat here and there. Bay Photo has kicked in. If I can get over here without that.
Yeah, it never picks the last one.
So Bay Photo gave us one free 16 by 24 thin wrap, including mount block or easel, valued up to $104. So one person will walk away with this tonight. And like I said before, our friends, so Serge is going to demonstrate Tonality Pro, and our friends at MacFun have given us a piece of this software, given us this software to give out. So I don't know how much this costs, Serge, like $100 or something?
No, it's a bit less.
It's less than 100, but it's got a good value on it.
It's great software.
Yeah, that's great. And assorted other things that are going to go out tonight. So that's the giveaway. So that'll happen at the end. So if you want to win, you got to stick around. Must be present to win. And then lastly is Serge Ramelli. So Serge Ramelli, I was this guy's fan before I met him. Right, so he's been doing YouTube videos like nobody's business. He's like one of the most consistent content creators online today. He's got one of the most popular YouTube channels that's devoted to Lightroom, Photoshop, and photography out there. If you're not a member of it, subscribe to it. He's publishing all the time, like every day or
no, 2 videos per week.
2 videos per week he's publishing on there, and these are like substantive tips. And he's giving out the raw files in many cases for you to download and follow along with what he's doing for free. So, you know, one of my resources in terms of getting educated and inspired about photography has been this guy. And earlier this year, I had a chance to go to Paris and actually meet him in person. And we sat down. He took me to dinner to one of his favorite haunts. We sat down and talked business and photography and all that. And then fast forward. Now Serge is here. So Serge, I'm going to tell this. I know, I'm supposed to tell this. So Serge is now living in Los Angeles, California. He's, bought a place in LA and lives there, in pursuit of one of his other dreams. So his dream of being a photographer is one thing, but he also has a dream of being in Hollywood and in show business as an actor. Right, which is why I was playing that kind of cinematic music. If you're wondering why that was playing, it's because I was trying to make Serge feel at home coming from LA and being in the business and all that. So, and he's graciously devoted his time. He's busy as, all get out, but came up here, actually drove up here today to speak to you guys specifically, right? So Serge Ramelli is going to go through all this stuff, and enough about me. Serge Ramelli, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Serge. So, that's correct.
Either one, whichever one's work.
Alright. Never tried this before. Okay.
And you can hook that on you or
Okay.
wherever it's more comfortable.
Yeah, I need my hands free.
Just stick it in your pocket.
Okay, can you hear me well? Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. As we say in Paris. So I was just curious, anybody follows my YouTube channel in the room? So I have an idea like what you know, what you don't know about me or, okay. So before we get into, retouching and tutorials, maybe I can give you the story of my life. I was born in May 1970. No, that's gonna be boring. No, what is interesting though is, I was a VP sales for my brother's company from 2000 to 2010. We were selling websites mainly for hotels in Paris. And in 2004 or 5, I went on holidays with my buddy who is here, Calvin Pimon, who is an amazing Photoshop guru. He's been a designer since the age of 15, and this is not a joke, and he's very talented. And in 2005, he showed me what Photoshop could do to a photo. We were by the beach and we took a girl and he just made the sky amazing and the girl looked amazing. Everything looked amazing. I said, oh, well, that was so cool to be able to, just with one software, one gear, which is, does it sound okay?
Oh, yeah, you're
Oh,
good.
cool.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm recording you.
Okay. All right. And I was really amazed, like, you could create so much effect with just one camera and one software. Because really, honestly, in today's market, mastering retouching is very important because if you don't, the other guys do master retouching, so you're kind of like out of the game. Even if you don't like retouching photos or if you're totally against it, in today's industry it's a bit hard to, not master this tool. But I love it. I personally, for me, what matters when I do a photo is, is it heavily retouched? Is it not heavily retouched? I started, learning. So back when we came back from the holidays, I started buying books about photography. I bought a lot of books from many people, and there's only one guy that I really love, which was Scott Kelby, which you probably all know, which is an amazing man and became a friend. And so I started reading all these books, and he was the only one that could really teach me and I could really understand what the subject was, because some of the books were so complex, like, getting into, photons and how it goes on the sensor and, mathematical formulas. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to take a photo, please. And Scott Kelby was very down to earth, explaining, how to make photos. So I started learning and I went on this project called Paris Cinema, because I live in Paris. I'm still living in Paris. I'm in LA, but I'm actually, I would say 80% of the time now in the US and 20% in Paris, also due to movies, but also due to books I'm doing on New York, San Francisco, Mexico, and probably Los Angeles. So, and I'll explain that later on. Anyways, so I started doing that, and I started doing these photos of Paris, and they became pretty popular, and some galleries wanted to sell them, and website were asking me, oh, we want to use these images, postal cards, many things. And I just, studied the subject for, from 2005, 2010. So it was just a hobby, really. And then in 2010, I got hired by a lot of hotels to make, hotel shoots. That was a way to make money. I actually quit my job as a VP sales because I was making good money, but I was really bored. And, all my life, I wanted to live off my dreams, and my dreams at that time was to make photography. So I started making interior design photography, learned all about that, shot about 200 hotels from 2008 actually. So I was VP sales in 2010, but from 2008 I started doing and billing people like hotels in Paris with my photography because it became popular. And then I quit my job in 2010 and became a full-time photographer, basically doing interior designs. But, a lot of brands was hiring me for, because they wanted photo of Paris. I happen to have one of the biggest collection of photo of Paris. I have like over 400 photos of pretty good quality of Paris. So I get all the time. It's such an iconic city that a lot of brands contact me saying, oh, we'd like to use that shot or that shot. So it became like a really income source for me. And then I started about 2 years ago my YouTube channel. I want to be crazy on that, but I did not expect such a success. Because now I've got 200,000 subscribers, and brands comes to see me, and people buy my tutorials, and I try to do as much free stuff as I can do. I also, Calvin is taking care of all the marketing. We do a lot of marketing on the sales stuff. If you're subscribed to my newsletters and stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But, you know, I try to share my passion. That's really what I try to do. Is really, photography. I think it's so amazing today because you can just be by yourself with one of this gear and just take a photo and, you know, and share it with the world and create an art piece. And I think this is so amazing, to be able to do. I mean, you know, 200 years ago, we had to paint for 6 months to get an amazing piece. You know, here with Lightroom and camera, we can do in 24 hours an amazing work of art that's in the gallery here. You know, so it's all a matter of like finding the right light and finding the right composition and the right subject, and that's what I want to get into afterwards. But that's, in short, is a bit my story. Now, the acting thing is just an old dream I have of being an actor. I played in many short movies in France, a couple of long feature films, and actually a screenwriter from Hollywood loved my show, but loved it so much that he wrote a script about me. And we're starting the Kickstarter project called The Parisian. It's a crazy story of a Frenchman in Los Angeles who sells flowers, knows nothing about flowers, but he has this sort of ability where he can see dead people and he's looking for the love of his life from an earlier life. And it's a fantasy, but it's very well written. I was honored that a guy wrote this thinking about me. I'm like, wow, okay, cool. And so we're financing. We have some investors, so we should be shooting it in March, and we'll see. But it's a funny, that's one of the reasons I'm in Los Angeles, because it's really happening. There's a very big Hollywood producer who is on the project, and it's really happening. So I'm happy about that. We'll see how that goes. And in the meantime, I do photos and share my work. All right. So let's get into the photos. So I do mainly, this was my interior work. I just want to show you maybe some, landscape travel, just before we get into the meat of retouching. And I show you a few things. So I like a lot of very colorful colors, very, movie poster type photos. That's really what I go for. Like these photos, I'm actually going to show you how I shot and retouched that photo tonight. I shot this, I was, just with my kids by the countryside, and the sun was coming down behind the horse. It's like 20 miles away from Paris, and I'm like, oh my god, this is really nice. This is from the south of France. This is Florida, a long exposure shot. I always like to do long exposures. That's Florida again. Very nice park by close to Tampa with these gators. It's amazing. This is the Mont Saint-Michel. This is the second most visited place in France. It's unreal because it's like a little island in the middle of the sea, and the sea goes out for like hours during the day, and so it's like really like sand and just an island, and then the sea comes back at night. And you can walk around when the sea is not there, but you have to watch out because the sea comes back at the speed of a horse riding. So it's like, you better not be there. People actually surfing, they put the surf on the sand, they wait for the wave to come and they go on the wave. But that's only twice a month. There's a special tides that are very fast. This is Florida again. So, this is Israel. This is Jordania. This is Dead Sea, taken from Israel, looking at the Jordania. This is again Florida. This is the Antelopes in Page, Arizona. This is Los Angeles, the Walt Disney Concert Hall. This is Atlanta, Georgia, very famous spot, very easy to take. We did I think a tutorial on that one. This is Cassis, south of France. This is Los Angeles. I actually sold that photo tonight. I was very proud. This summer I sold it for the homepage of 9.com. They was doing some summer photos, and I shot this. It was funny because, and I'll talk about this type of technique. I was actually driving to meet Calvin at the observatory, and I look on my left, and it's like the sun is coming down, and I'm seeing that. And it's really, this is how the profile looked like. And I just stopped the car, and everybody was like, I just took like the photo, but I always expose to the highlights. I'll talk about that. And I got the shot, and Nike called me like 2 weeks later, said, I want to buy this photo. I was like, oh, okay, good. No problem. So then you become like an official 9.com photographer. They get you to fill in the whole form, and it's pretty cool. So, this is again Florida. This is the southwest of France. It's the biggest dune in Europe. And it's called Mont Pilat, I believe. And it's an amazing dune in the south of France. This is in Spain. This is in Corsica. And actually, not this one, but Now this is Corsica again. Another one, but I sold to National Geographic. I was really happy because, being National Geographic as a photographer is like one of the things. I got $114 for it, to be honest. So it didn't pay me much, but I was National Geographic. I was so happy.
Bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. This is Hermosa Beach in Los Angeles. That's the photo I sold on for National Geographic. It was the Spain version of National Geographic. But anyway, it was still nice. That's again Corsica. That's the Alps in France. So, like very vibrant. That's Portugal, sunrise in Portugal. That's again the Antelope in Pages, Arizona. If you've never been there, it's amazing spot for photographer. And that's a small village in the southwest of France. And voila! Okay, yeah, so we're going to talk about that photo. That's you saw the final result. That's the unretouched raw file. I shot this, I believe, the Canon 5D Mark II, or, let's see, or 7D. Not sure. Let's see if I can find the metadata. No, 70. I shot this with a 70. And I was actually not planning to do photography, but you never know, when something can happen. And back in the old days on film, when people were working in films, they used to expose for the lower parts for the dark information. So when you were developing film, it was hard to get data from the shadows. However, in the digital world, it's the opposite. When the sun is in your frame, if you are too bright, you have just no information. It's like burned. The sun becomes 100% white, and you don't have the details. And you know that one thing that makes a photo is the sky. When you have a nice sky, amazing, clouds, that really makes a photo. So let's talk about techniques first. So I was at 100 ISO, 7.1, and 1/25th of a second. Basically, I always shoot manual. This is like 99.9% of the time I'm in manual mode because I want to see what I'm doing. And so what I did is I took a first shot probably at 1/250th of a second. It was too dark, or 1/50th of a second was too bright. And I found that 125 second. My idea is this: when the sun is in the camera, I want to make sure that I still can distinguish a little bit of what is going on in the shadows. Because I know if I can distinguish what is going on in the shadows and I shot in RAW, I will be able to do the magical Lightroom shadow settings and discover the shadows. If I would have shot this a little bit brighter, or if I would have tried to do some HDR, like taking bracketing, the horse was moving, coming towards the kids. So HDR was not going to work. That was the only possibility I had to get that shot, was to shoot for the highlights. And that's very important because that's what I do 80% of the time. I used to do a lot of HDR with bracketed shots, and now I try to do just like one good exposed raw file. But what is a one good exposed raw file for me? That is a photo where the highlights are not burned. Because now, if I bring the highlights down, you see we have all the details of the sun, which is pretty cool. However, one thing that's wrong with this photo is the white balance. The white balance is kind of like, is too cold. It was very warm. I was like, actually could hardly see. The sun was straight in my eyes. So the next thing, so what I always used to do, I have this formula. If you follow my tutorials, it's plus 100 on the shadows and minus 100 on the highlights. But that only works if you expose for the highlights. Meaning that, well, for one, I don't do it all the time. I do it most of the time. And the reason why I do that is because then I go into the whites and the blacks. And what I'm trying to do by doing the plus 100 and the minus 100 and then doing the whites and blacks, all I'm trying to do is get all the information of the photo going from the very dark information to the very bright information and having all of that well spread. Because if you hold on the Alt key on your keyboard and you move your white slider, you get a black screen. If you move again to the right, you're going to move it and you're going to start to see some red. This red means that these points are 100 white. There is no more information. So usually I back off. I want to get all the information there. Same thing with the black, but it's reverse. I hold on the Alt key and you can see in yellow, we can see some of the horse there. And, so I know my black point is cool. So I know now that my histogram, that my informations are well spread from the dark to the whites. I don't have anything. We can see in the shadows. We can see in the highlights. The only thing that's really wrong with this photo is the white balance. I always shoot with the automatic white balance, and I want to give it a very warm fitting. So I'm going to go to shade, and I'm going to add a little bit of magenta. Why? Because I add magenta everywhere, all the time. It's my thing. I'm just a magenta fan. I know some people hate magenta. I just love it. I just add this little magenta. It's nice. And then on this one, I probably would do add even some vibrance to make it even more vibrant. And then, you know, already, let's look at the before and after. Before, after, you know, it's quite a change. We still have some details here. If we look in the horse, you know, we can still have some details. We have some lens flare here, which I'm going to take care of probably in Photoshop. But, you know, it's a bit grainy. It's, when you open up the shadows, it's a bit grainy, but honestly, unless you have the Sony A7R, which I do have now, there was no other way to take that photo of the horse coming to me. There was just like no other way to do that. Why I'm talking about the Sony A7R, because that camera has got a lot more dynamic range. And so I would have even less noise. I would take the exact same shot, except that by opening up the shadows, I would get hardly any noise. Here, because it's the Canon 7D, I have a bit of noise. But you know, we can always go to the noise reduction. And on this one, I would probably, I don't think you can see it on screen, I probably will go on 20. I have no idea what you're seeing on screen. It could be completely ugly.
I can see it.
Okay. You can see it? Okay. So, I would probably reduce about 20 of the noise just to get this grainy aspect of the horse off. But then I would bring back some sharpening, and I usually have this formula where I take 100 and I deduct whatever I did in noise reduction. Do you guys follow me on this? It's not too technical. I have no idea your technical level. I'm trying to explain this, you know, as simple as I can.
So you're saying you split it?
I split it, yeah. If I would do 10 of noise reduction, I would do 90 of sharpening. It's completely arbitrary. It's just something that works for me when I do big prints, and I just, you know, it's a habit. So 2080, but what I do is masking. That's very important. What masking is, if you hold on the Alt key and you go to the right, you see anything that's becoming black is basically not going to get sharpened. So, and we don't want to sharpen the sky, because when you sharpen the sky, what happens is you get, I don't know if you can tell on screen, but you get very grainy sky. I want a very smooth sky. That's very digital, and for that, I don't think you can tell on screen, but on a big print you could tell. So as I move right, you see anything that is black is not going to get sharpened. That's fine for me. So, okay, that's very important. Then on about the profile correction, that's going to take out some vignetting effect or some problems with the lens. And then remove chromatic aberration. Now that's very important, especially when you shoot under the sun, because chromatic aberration is little colors you can have on the edge of objects. I don't think it's that much on this one, but because more you close your aperture, more you have chance of having this chromatic aberration. At least that used to be very true 5-6 years ago. Honestly, with today's lens, I hardly noticed it. But anyway, so remove chromatic aberration, you know, in case there is some hidden chromatic aberration that is hiding somewhere. You know, the last thing you want is make big prints like this, and then, you know, you look at it and you see like around the eyes some like green lines or red lines, or that's the problem, is that when you retouch, that's why I never retouch on small screen. I always retouch on big screens, because there are things you just can't see on small screens, especially when I do prints which are all about that size, like very big prints. And, yeah, so it's important for this type of details, but for the demonstration, I will not do much. One option which I really love is the auto option in the upright function. I'll show you before and after. What it does, it puts the horizontal line straight. And one thing that I do on this one is I want to make it more like a movie thing. So I'm gonna crop it. I'm gonna crop it so we can see better the horse, and so that we have more of a panoramic view. For me, this is a scene from a movie. You know, it's you know, Gone with the Wind. You know, there's a lot of Spielberg does a lot of that in War Horse. You know, I don't know if you saw War Horse. You know, with all these sunsets and stuff. So for me, this is like a Spielberg shot. I'm not Spielberg, but you know, it's an homage. It's an homage to Monsieur Spielberg. Okay, and so at this point, I'm pretty happy, but I want to do a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, what I call close the photo. What I mean by closing the photo is I'm taking this tool, which is a gradient tool. What the gradient tool does is that you can do all these things: exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, clarity, blah, blah, blah. All these things, but on a gradient. So if I choose the option of exposure, and I lower the exposure, and I make a little gradient here, what's going to happen is that it's going to, this value of minus 1.17 is going to be applied in full from here to here, and from there to that thing is going to be on a gradient. So it just enables to, you see the eyes goes to the brightest part of the photo. So by darkening the top of the photo and the bottom of the photo, I'm forcing the eyes of the viewer to go inside the photo where the horse is, which is what I wanted to do. So same thing for the bottom. Plus, I have a big problem. There's something that I hate about the bottom of this photo is that it's grass. And grass, the problem is grass. So what I did is I clicked again and it just made with the same value another one at the bottom. So let me show you the before and after. You know, it just puts more the attention toward the center. The grass, the problem with grass is that grass is a very high frequency type of texture. Sometimes I find it aggressive for the eyes, like when you have trees with no leaf, you know, a lot of high frequency textures, you know, a lot of stuff going on. The whole idea in photography is we try to communicate one message. The only message I want to communicate in this photo is a horse with the sun. That's it. You know, I don't want to communicate, oh, there is a lot of grass on the floor, or there is a car behind, or, you know. Even the lens flare, I find it very distracting. Now, the lens flare, I'm going to butcher it using the spot healing brush tool here. But in real life, I did it in Photoshop to get a better result. But I don't want to do like a half-an-hour tutorial on stamping. And, you know, I even took that out in the final photo because this is a bit too, you know, there's a little white spot here, but it's already a bit better with the spot healing brush tool. So, again, the before, the after. Okay, I think originally I even added even more vibrance on this one and even more yellow, I think. Even crazy on this one. I really wanted one unique color to be this photo. And voila. And I really did not expect to take that photo, because this was really just an accident. You know, I always try to have a camera on me. I have, in case somebody does something crazy tonight, I actually brought my Sony A7R. I'm ready to shoot anything that's going to happen now. And, but yeah, I think as a photographer, you should have your camera on you. That's why I love the Sony also because it's very light. Because I used to do a lot of, you know, with Sony 7Ds, 5D Mark II, and the lenses. Very heavy. So voila, that's my first photo. Hope you like it. So that's the before, and that's the after. Okay. Going to Venice, Italy. Same concept, and I want to show this to you because I really want to insist on the concept of exposing right your raw file. Before you get the magic into Lightroom, your composition is going to be something nice. And for me, there is the main rule of composition that I find that applies is the one of the message of what I could call a graphical composition. People often says, "Oh, your photo has a graphical composition," and I tried to figure out what that meant. And what I think it means is that when you see a graphic, like take the Nike logo, for example, or an Espresso logo, or very simple logos, it's very simple. It's just one shape, right? So that it's not distracting. It doesn't show too much. It's just that. Okay. When you make a graphical composition, the idea is you just show one thing. The biggest problem we have as photographers today is you just want to shoot something and there's so many things going on. You know, the car passing by and an airplane there and 4 guys there, a dog, but you just wanted to get at sunset with that road, you know, and I spend 95% of my time as a photographer trying to find the right composition, trying to find the right angle, to have something that communicates just one thing and not 10,000 things. And that's right, you know, apart from this here, which I completely forgot, how do you call this in English? A crane. Apart from the crane, oops, sorry. It's Venice, Italy, you know, well, there's a boat there. Same thing. Now this was an HDR shot. I first wanted to HDR it, but the thing is, in Venice, the boats go up and down all the time. And any attempt I did to do HDR with this photo didn't work because it was just too much what we call the ghosting effects. You know, when things move between your 3 exposure, it just makes ghosting effects. So, boom. But you see, if I open up the shadows and bring down the highlights, already it's more interesting. And that's the power of RAW files. You know, that's why I always shoot RAW, and I guess because RAW data has, you know, RAW files have so much hidden data. It's pretty crazy. So on this one, I would even lower the overall exposure. I would still lose the whites and blacks. I'm going to go a bit faster now. Okay, and same thing on this one. Oh, let's talk about the white balance for a second. When you shoot RAW, you have different, like a lot of people sometimes says, oh, I don't have this option of daylight, cloudy, shade, tungsten, fluorescence, on my, files. That's because it's not a raw file. That only works if you have a raw file, meaning you don't have to worry about your white balance. The only time I worry about the white balance is when I do interior design photography and the architect is there and wants to see my shots. Because if I show him, sorry, blue shots or yellow shots, completely blue or yellow, he's going to say, what a horrible photographer I am. But if I'm alone and no one sees what I'm seeing, I don't care about the white balance. I just, automatic white balance, and I just figure it out later on I figured out like how it was. Same thing here. It was very warm fitting. So you've got daylight, cloudy. Now daylight is supposed to be basically a pretty cool white balance. Okay, cloudy is supposed to be a bit warmer. And shade is even more warmer. Now I have a formula. Is when the sun is in the photo, I always go shade and add a little bit of magenta. But please tell no one. Okay, and on this one actually I'm going to even add even more yellow because I really want this one to be yellow. So that's already like it's 3 sliders, quite a change. That goes from this to this. I mean it's a major change. On this one I think I even lowered a little bit the overall photo to give it like it was really an beginning of sunset feeling. And I think I had a bit of clarity. No, actually on this one I think I even went like minus clarity. The problem is when you do the plus 100 and minus 100, usually it gives a little HDR look to your photo. So actually adding a little bit of minus clarity just makes the whole thing a bit more soft and more natural. But this is really how it felt. I was in Venice and I was seeing this scene. I was like, wow, I've got to share this to the world. And I was very happy about that. So I just might add some vibrance because, it was very vibrant. And, okay, I'm going to do the gradient. I'm going to close the photo again. Boom. A little bit. Not that much. Okay, I usually do it a bit too much. But I just want to get a gradient there. And, same thing here. I'm trying to get people to go inside of the photo. Now, the other thing I would do on this photo, and, that's something I learned from, a famous photographer, Joe McNally, where he says something. He said to me one day, he said, an object which is partially lit is more interesting than an object which is evenly lit. Like if you have a wall and it has the same light on the entire wall, it's boring, right? But if you start putting a spotlight on it, then it gets interesting because some parts in the shadow, some parts in the bright. So if you want to create interest, get off the boring lights, okay? And one way to do that I like to do is use the Rydro filter, which I'm going to go on exposure. Now the Rydro filter works exactly like the gradient filter, except that it's a circle. So what I'm doing here, I have to invert the mask because what I want basically is to boost the exposure. So I'm going to exaggerate so you see what I mean. Now I have like a spotlight that I have in the photo, right? That's way too much. So if it's invert mask, if I do it the opposite, it's going to brighten everything but the circle. I don't want that. I want to invert that. So I want this slider to affect only what's inside the circle. Okay, but I'm going to feather it because I want the aspect to be more subtle. Okay, and I'm going to lower this. And all I'm trying to do is, I'm cheating a little bit on this one, it's just to make this building not so evenly lit. Just a little shade of gradient, but it's gotta be like, I'm doing it a bit too much, you can see it on the screen, but it's gotta be just, like, I don't want somebody to walk and say, oh, you did something on that wall. No. And then if that happens, then it's not good. But, okay, let's say I hope this is, when I'm happy with one, I right click on it and I duplicate it and I just put it on some other place. Right click and duplicate it. Maybe here. Okay, let me show you the before and after. And actually, usually what I do when I do that is I just, I'm going to lower the power of this one. It's a bit too much. But you get the idea. But I remember, just to tell you a little story, how I got into interior design photography. I had a friend, because I was VP sales, so he had 11 4-star hotels in Paris, and he was a very fancy man. He was a very show business. Like he always has movie star coming to the hotels, and he was really into the nightclub. Very nice man, but he likes the Paris by night type of life. And he was opening this brand new hotel by the Champs-Élysées, and he wanted something special, and he wanted something airline, he wanted something. So he said, "Oh, I saw your photo of Paris, and I actually hired 5 different photographers for the same room. I want you to try all your different photo techniques, and I'll see, who I like the most. Me and my investors will look at all the photos, and the one who wins gets to shoot the entire hotel." It was like an $8,000 photo deal, so it's not so bad, for 2 days of work. That's pretty well spent. So I went there, and I used that technique. I was doing like light sprays and spotlights, and I just recreated the light a lot in Lightroom, and I won. And he says, "Well, there is emotions in your photo. There is emotion." He kept saying that. Like the other guys had a very, classic approach to it, and I just added the spotlights. And I got that first job, but that guy was so famous in Paris that I never had to make one more phone call. From that point on, I was just being asked to make photographies because he was friends with another guy who had 24 hotels, and it just went on until I came to LA for 4 years. I got, just because I used the radial circle in Lightroom. I'm not joking. That brought me 4 years of work. It's not a joke. I mean, you gotta have a bit of talent, but the thing is, I want to create emotion on people. I want people to see my photos, like photos here, Peter Lindbergh, or, some of Scott Scalby, Trey Ratcliffe. They just go, wow, I want to create an effect. I want people to be amazed by my photography. And so, that's why it's pretty saturated, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes, and I'm actually going to show you my whole workflow in black and white later on, but that's just me. But you see how this light here, now we've been looking at it for 2-3 minutes, your eyes is getting used to it, it just looks more interesting, If I go there and I do, before, after, you can say, "Oh, you did something there," But if somebody would walk into the room now and just look at that photo, he wouldn't even notice it's there. He'd say, "Oh, it's just great. There's something about this world that I like," Well, it is making the light more interesting. So, call it cheating, call it being an artist, whatever you want. As long as I'm getting the jobs, I don't care. I don't care.
So the question is, before you released this to the public or sold it, would you or would you not get rid of the crane?
Oh, I did. Actually, in the official photo, I did get it. Yeah, I just don't want to spend time on this type of retouching. Yeah, I would, because
it does draw your eye.
Oh, yeah, it does. It's just, that's like, it's something that does not contribute to the message I'm trying to give, which is, Venice by night, sunset on Venice, like the crane, it's got nothing there. You have the feeling this is from another time. So crane is a modern item. It would not fit there. I could do it using this new option here in Lightroom 5, which I like, where you can, just make it small and just follow. It's going to work to a certain degree, but when we're going to get close here to the building, it might not work well. Let's see. See, it's going to make a little thing, which is not very nice. Definitely not nice. But you can go back on it like this. And go back on it like this. Sometimes that works a little bit. Yeah, that's as good as it gets. Then the problem is that you have this little smearing there. I would go to Photoshop to get rid of that, but you get the idea. I mean, when you view it from one, full screen, doesn't bother you so much. So this is the before and that's the after. Quite a difference, isn't it? And that's, like when I take a photo, I know if I got it right or not, because this only works. You see, that photo looks great because it was truly like that. A raw file per definition is, the difference between a JPEG and a raw file is a JPEG is that the camera is going to retouch the photo for you based on about 30,000 different type of, I was looking at the algorithms of how they do that. They have a database of like 30,000 types of photography, and so they retouch it. You just click and it's retouched. They contrast, saturation, white balance, sharpening. Everything is done for you. When you shoot RAW, it's very pale. There is no colors, but it's you who's doing it, and you have a more artistic viewpoint than just a database. So that I only shoot JPEG when I do sport photography or or I don't know, something I don't really care about, to be honest. If I really care, I will do it. If I want to be mean, yeah.
So in both photos, you seem not to have touched the tone curve or adjusted the contrast. Is this on purpose or an accident?
By doing the plus 100 and minus 100 and the whites and the black, I'm actually doing a lot of contrast. I am doing it. Now, on this one, I might, just add a little bit of contrast like this, just to finish it off. The thing is, you see, the problem with that is, sorry, because this is, something's annoying me a little bit. Okay. The problem is your eyes get used to something. So what I always do, like especially if it's a big client, I just did a big shoot in Mexico for a big client, and before I finish a photo, I always look at other things for 15 minutes and then come back. And then I know if it's too much contrast or not. And I always go on one thing, do I like it or not? If I really like it, I know some people will like it. Not everybody does. It's very hard to please everybody, So what I do is I usually post it on 500px, 2x2, and see which one gets the most, points or whatever. I can see if the general public likes it or not. But, like this is probably almost finished for me. Of course, I would do the classic, noise, probably 90, 10, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bother you with that. But I would do something like this and probably even add a bit of postcard vignetting in this one. Just to make it even more crazy. Before. After. Yeah. Is there any questions so far? Because before I keep talking, please come on stage and do a tutorial.
Can I ask you about the composition?
Sure.
You have the pole right in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's on purpose because you could have just...
No, it's not on purpose. I wish that pole wasn't there. It would be even better. But you don't always win. But anyways, I still like the photo. Any other questions? Yeah, don't hesitate if you have questions about, what I do or what I don't do. Now is the time. This is
How do you compose something like that? When you look at something and you're trying to figure out what it is you're trying to take, what do you look at?
I always go for the light first and then I find the subject. Like in Venice, everything's beautiful. So I was waiting for the light and I saw the sun was coming down with some nice clouds. And I even do that in Paris. It's not a joke. I have a motorbike, a little scooter, and I follow the clouds in Paris. And everything is nice in Paris. And once I got the nice light, then I just find the subject. Literally, this is what I do 80% of the time. Because it's the light that's going to make the photo. The only reason why the white balance on this one really worked, this sort of warm, and it's actually working, is because there's a lot of sun that was hidden in this raw file that I just revealed by putting the right white balance. But it's not, you take any photos and you just go into, shade and add a bit of magenta, you get a nice photo. Like, it doesn't work. It has to be there. Yes, sir.
You mentioned you ride around your best bud. I love Paris, by the way. It's really nice, except for the drivers. When we were here, I noticed that at sunset or at sunrise, if I was taking a picture, I almost didn't have time to set up because you lose what you're looking at. Do you set up a tripod or do you hand hold?
Well, simple. As long as the sun is around and I can get it in because basically I have an app called PhotoCal, which gives you, when the sunset starts and ends. I always start an hour before the sunset starts. So it usually gives me 1.5 hours of shooting. Why? Because the first hour is what we call the golden hour. The sun comes down, everything gets golden if the light condition is that way. This is like a golden hour shot. And so, as long as I'm in the golden hour, I shoot by hand. Because the sun is there. You see, I shot this. This is a raw file. 1/200th of a second, I was at f9. 100 ISO. So f9 is, I could go to f4 and still have a decent photo. So, and as soon as the sun, gets behind the buildings, then I start taking out the tripod because then it doesn't work anymore. That's how I rock. So I shoot for 1.5 hours. The first hour is without a tripod, but I have a very small Gitto tripod. It's very light, carbon fiber. I've had it for 7 years. And I have it in my scooter and I just pull it out when the sun goes behind the buildings. Sometimes the best time is just a golden hour. Sometimes the sunset is even better. But I get used to it now. I've done it so many times that I can tell about an hour before exactly how it's going to go. It's very rare that I have a surprise. You get so much used to how the sun works and blah, blah, blah. Interesting. Yes?
How much do you care about the edges? If I look at your image, it's a great image. But on the left edge, halfway up, there's like a light. Oh, I can't see it from where I am. There's like a light.
Here?
Yeah.
That?
Does that irritate you?
No. No, because you see, all the buildings are pretty similar.
Yeah.
it's not like there would be a modern building where we see half of it. I know there is this rule that we call the border police, where you look around your photo and make sure you don't have something that's sticking out. The thing is, see, that building is very similar to that building. It's like every building is very similar in Venice, so you have a whole. If that building would be very modern, I would probably crop it out. But it's just part of the.
So the fact that that's like a lighter area, I forget what the building.
Yeah, well, honestly, on this one, I think on the final image, I did a bit more post. Yeah, I didn't do anything about that. I didn't. It's the first time I noticed it. I've been seeing this photo for 4 years. So,
There's no
okay.
right or wrong. I was just interested in
No, I know, I get it. I mean, there might be a lot of things wrong with this photo. Like, for example, I hate that the water is like that. I don't like when the water is a high frequency texture, which is what there is. I love the long exposure look. The problem in Venice, the boats go up and down all the time, so long exposures don't work very well in Venice. So I had to freeze the water, but I don't like, there's many things I would like to change. But somehow, that photo came out alright. Somehow, I love that photo. Sometimes it's like, yeah, what can I say?
So if you're on assignment, and let's say your customer is one of the buildings on the right, would you treat this differently?
Well, if I was shooting the building on the right, unless you wanted like a really environmental shot, I would get closer to the building. But I would not treat it that way. When I do I just worked for a congressman in Mexico. The guy has the biggest art book collection I ever saw. He's a multimillionaire. He owns 50 restaurants in Mexico, the biggest restaurant in Miami. Makes $100 million a year. And loves art. He has a photo gallery, which I shot for. And, but he has no idea what he's talking about. He wanted me to shoot Mexico. And so he's like, yeah, you should take this, and you should do this, and that, and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, I just do what I want. I know what, I've done it for so much time now that I know what people will like. I know how the light should be, and there's when I look at the photos here, I'm not surprised of this. It's because it's very similar to what I do. So what I mean by that is my clients don't know what they want. All they want is some kind of emotion out of the photo. So I usually don't listen too much to what they say, and I just try to go for an artistic effect, and they somehow go like they usually just says, oh, it's great. They don't even get into the details of why is it great. And that's been my experience. Because it's a job, and we know what makes a photo work or what doesn't make a photo work. And that's just been my experience. I mean, I don't think I ever followed one single, client instruction. I'm not saying that I'm being I'm being very nice, but he was telling me you should shoot the Bella Artist Palacio, this side and blah, blah, blah. And finally I ended up doing it in the middle of the night from the top tower, because that's just how it was, dramatic lights, and he said, oh, you're right, that's much better. It's always like that. And I worked a lot for architects, for example. They just created this amazing restaurant or hotels, and they're not used to look at the lights. So, for example, I would say, I want to shoot it during the night because it's going to be nicer. And it is your responsibility as a photographer to create that emotional impact. And that's what makes money. You just you have to take that responsibility of you want a photo of your restaurant, I'm just going to make the best photo of the restaurant that I can do, and that's how that works, So, because it's a job, they are not themselves photographer, or if they are, then why would they hire you then, So that's been my experience. And it's funny because, really people cannot explain, I know when I do these rays of lights in Lightroom on interior design shots, and instead of having white walls, there's a bit of a gradient on it, and they're sitting there looking at it for hours. There's something about this photo it's got emotion. I'm like, yeah. It's called brush strokes on Lightroom. Anyways. Yeah. Well, before I get into the photo, let's talk about this photo. This is, sometimes I like to create a photo, meaning that it's like a bit of a setup. This is a bridge in Paris, and I love the idea of a natural frame. So, I was trying to frame Notre Dame, very famous church in Paris. We had amazing cloud that day. And so I started taking photos of being under that bridge of Notre Dame. Then I was just trying different focal lengths to see what would work the best. And then I had this idea. It's like, oh, what if I get a photographer in there? So I took, my assistant says, you're going to be me shooting the Notre Dame. So I gave him the Canon camera and I kept the Sony A7R. And then I think I got this shot, which is the one I like the most, or this one, yeah. The reason why I like more this one is we see more his body better than this one. And so, this is really like, talking about composition. I call these photos a photographer. That's the raw file on retouch. And I shot this again for the highlights, meaning, if I go into the develop module and I open up the shadows, I still get the details of that, which I don't really care. It's not, but look, if I go 900, I get all the details of this, everything is there. That's the Sony A7R. It's crazy. It's like, it's the equivalent of an HDR with a 5D Mark II for me. I know a lot of people who are upset because I went from Canon to Sony. I still use Canon, but, I use whatever works, honestly. And Sony works for me now. So on this one, on the Sony, I often don't go to -100 because I don't like this sort of HDR on realistic look. So I go, like this, and maybe a bit more. I'm going to use the white point and the black point. Something like this. And then we have to find the right white balance. Let's see, daylight. I think daylight works pretty well in this one. I want this a bit of a natural thing. I always add a little bit of magenta on daylights, but please don't want. Okay. Now, this one I like, but it's like, I want to get closer to the photographer. I think we have too much of bridge here. And I really like that shot because I was lucky. We had clouds and we had rain, which is amazing because, it really helps to make composition nice. It's just an interesting photo. Clarity. So one thing that I like to do is usually I like to, one thing I see a lot is this. People would do this a lot. Plus 100 clarity. I see that all over 500px and everything. And that's really ugly. Yeah. They do this and they do this. Very vibrant, very, I'm going to create an association against this type of things. So because it's really ugly. The thing is, in life you have different type of contrast. You have contrast in terms of what is dark and what is bright. So we have the contrast of the darkness of the tunnel. And I'm actually going to make it even darker. I think I'm going to bring the shadows down. Because on Canon I used to do always 100 plus 100, but on Sony now, it's so much hidden data that I'm like, okay, hold on. And
did you shoot the A7R handheld?
On this one, yeah, I think so. Well, let's see, look, yeah, 1/25 of a second, yeah, f10, 1/25 of a second, yes. And I was using just a prime, that 35mm prime that they have, which I really love.
What's the dynamic range?
I don't know. I just know that I get so much more on the cloud and so much more in the shadows and a lot less noise. And, I don't do, since I've had the Sony A7R, I just did not do any more HDR. I just stopped. That was the end of automatics for me. Which I'm actually going to try now. Where is the Sony A7R, by the way? Calvin, you have it?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, somebody won the Sony A7R tonight. Frederick, do you have it? No. I came with it.
He's leaving with it.
I don't know if it's there. Anyway, we'll find it probably. Oh, it's there. It's right there. It's very small. And that's really what I like about it. It's very small, but it's got, I'm not here to, I don't work for Sony. I don't get any commissions on it. I've been doing, it's just like, it is an exceptional camera. Trey Ratcliffe got me into it and I was like, this is really cool. Okay, now, on this one, so what I like to do is, I was talking about contrast. I want to go and add you see, if you add a minus clarity, all of a sudden, the whole thing becomes more natural. However, it is sometimes interesting to mix basically two types of clarity. So you can always take a brush and go for clarity and just add a little bit of clarity. Just a little bit there. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, I'm on the wrong. I want to go to brush. Brush, clarity. Yeah. Just add a little bit of clarity on the buildings. Okay, my flow and density is very low. That's why nothing much is happening. And, just there because, okay, that's even too much. But, you just add it by touch here and there to make a contrast between, silky water and the sky. And you don't put it everywhere. Just, try to play a contrast with it. Let me see. That might be even too much. Before, after. Yeah, it's kind of fine. I think I'm going to lower it a little bit. And now, on this one, this I actually took out in Photoshop on the final image. I took this out. I think I'm gonna post-crop vignetting. I want to darken a lot. So I want the attention to be just on the photographer and on Notre Dame. I think on the original photo, maybe add a little bit more magenta. Let's see. A little bit more vibrance. Just a little touch. Let's see the before and after.
So if you lower the clarity, you boost the
well, when I lower the clarity, I lower the clarity for everything.
Right, smooth things out. You increase the
Sharpening.
Yes, thank you. Senior moment there.
No, sharpening, I always go for that rule. Sharpening is different than clarity. Clarity is like, it's very visible. It's an effect. It's like an illustrative type of look. Sharpening just makes the edges a bit more sharp. It's a different animal. So I always do my formula. So this is something about the composition. You see, for me, the photographer is on the right, Notre Dame is on the left, so rule of third. We've got leading lines, you know, the paths going to Notre Dame, that's another rule of composition. We've got a natural frame from the tunnel, you know, and anything that didn't belong to the photo was taken out. Like this, I waited for no one to come, the boats were not there, you know, and it works.
Did you leave the people for scale?
No. I left them because they were there. I mean, but yes, I left them for scale. Thank you. I waited for these people to be there. That was for scale. Oh my God. I wanted that scale. Yeah, definitely. I think on this one I added a bit of more reflection in the water. So I would go to exposure with a little brush and just, you know, maybe met some of the reflection. I'm sorry. This way, just a little, just to make it a bit more interesting. Maybe not. I always do it too much and then I slide it down a little bit. Just a little. And then I would do the, you know, the radial circle thing that I showed you before, just to make these buildings a bit more interesting. You know, feather the mask. Okay, any questions so far? Or anybody else has a question? Well, I'm showing you Paris, France. An amazing city.
Do you shoot the A7R differently because it has a different, all your cameras a little differently, or did you pretty much shoot the same?
I shoot exactly the same. Just shooting for the highlights. I'm just happy because now I've got more data in the shadows. That's the only difference, really. And it's lighter. It's really lighter. So I have a small bag and I try to only shoot with one lens now. I have 24-70 lenses. I used to have like so many lenses and back troubles, and now don't have any more back troubles. And it's a 36 million file. So if I want to make a big print, it's like 36 million pixel. I've had the most amazing prints with that camera, and I do lots of prints. I was lucky to be picked by a network of gallery a year ago, actually, called Yellow Corner. Their idea is that they do prints like this, but they sell them like around €1,000 when all the galleries who makes big prints sells between 3,000 and 4,000. So they're a bit cheaper because just to print a photo that big costs almost €1,000. Because the way they make the prints is like, you know, with, I don't know, you call that with, well, like this. Very similar to this without the frame. And it's very expensive to make. So it's like, it used to cost me just to make the prints what they sell. So but they have their own factory, so that's how the photographers can make money. But the thing is that they have 71 galleries in the world, including 12 in Paris, including one in the Louvre. I mean, the most amazing places. They have 2 in Saint-Germain, like all where the tourists are, like in New York, very, very key locations. And so they sell a lot. They really sell a lot. And so I did a lot of photos for them. And since I have the Sony A7R, they have really like an expert in big prints. And he's like, oh my God, I love these files that you're giving me now. They're a lot better. Like, you know, just the prints are just way better because 36 million pixel for this type of work, it makes really a difference than the, you know, 20 million pixel, whatever, the 5D Mark II, which is what I used to work with before. Actually, instead of going to the 5D Mark III, I went Sony. because also of the weight. I travel a lot, and I have this idea of just having, like, you know what really got me into buying the Sony A7R was two things. Trey Ratcliffe photos, and how he was praising about it. But another guy, if you follow my work, you know that I'm a friend with a guy called Jean-Michel Pertz, who is a black and white artist, and he's a very famous artist. He's got 8 books which are bestsellers in the world, called The Light of New York, The Light of Paris, The Light of Venice. Very nice black and white books. And he's been working for, he did 7 books with a 1949 camera, with a special infrared film from the 60s. He had a certain, and he just had a certain number of these films, and he ran out. And this funny thing is, like, he had to make a book on New York. He went to New York for 2 weeks, shot 72 photos, got 69 published. He only takes like 2-3 photos a day, because it's you should see the camera. It's a huge, you know, like with a chamber, you know, with the thing, but it makes amazing prints, because when he scans them, what he does, he goes to his hotel and puts the thing. He has a basket, a special bag for it, and he develops the photo in the hotel room. Then he scans them, and then he retouch them, does all the dodge and burning on Photoshop. But when he scans them, they come out as a 100 million pixel file instead of a 36 million, because it's 8 by 10. I think it's like big films. I'm not familiar very much with this technology. And so he had a number of films. The first thing that struck me was, like, he would go, you know, and get up a tower and just take 1 photo and come down. He says, I have it. And he didn't even see. He would discover it 2 hours later in the hotel room. And I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years. I'm like, oh my God. And I would have shot 80 photos just to be sure I had the right one. And he says, that's a mistake. People take too much photos today. You know, you have to spend the time to look with your eyes. He spends hours looking with his fingers and saying, okay, I take the shot. And that was really a lesson for me. That was the first lesson. The second lesson is he's been shooting with a 35mm he bought on eBay. That's 12 years old. And he did all these books with that. Like, he bought it for $20. And he did all these books with that 35mm lens. I'm like, what? And his books, you know, sold, you know, he's making like $300,000 per year with his books. You know, you're talking big money here. So I'm like, he's only using 1 lens, you know, and he only takes 1 photo, and I'm like using all these lenses, you know, taking 80 photos, and I'm like, something might be wrong with me, you know. And I thought, so he went, then he ran out of film, because he was buying them from Tokyo at the end. He found some guy in Tokyo in the backyard that had 20 left. No kidding, this is really how it went. It was a very specific film. He called it the infrared because it could read really, like, if you had like a blown out sky, a very white sky, you could see the details. So his clouds are, his details are, his skies has a lot of details due to that film. And so when he ran out of film, he bought the Nikon D800. And he did 1 book with it, which is called The Lights of Jerusalem. That was his first digital book. And he was really happy about it. He says it's good, except on big prints. On big prints, it's still, like, the galleries are not very happy in New York, because he does prints which are, like, about 4 times bigger than that. And so the 100 million pixel file that he used to have, now with the 36 million. But, so that really teach me something that I must work more the eyes of the photographer, like, spend more time observing things and taking less photos. And this is what I've been trying to do. I'm not at this level. I have a journey to do. And I thought the Sony A7R was really perfect for that, because, you know, 1 lens. So I shot a lot with the 35mm. Finally, I took the 2470 because it's got more latitude. I like to, you know. But 1 lens, 1 camera, and try to do a lot less photos. That's just worked for me. So, anyways. Any other questions before we continue the tutorials? No? No questions? So let me show you the Paris. I call this a photographer. I really like that photo because it's a bit of a portrait and a landscape at the same time. So it's all about also working on the composition. On this one, I'm going to reset it. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. I'll show you how it was before. That's how it was before. I want to talk to you about something about depths in photography also, which I think is interesting.
Oh, question.
Yeah.
So there are rules in many places, including Paris, especially about taking pictures of the Eiffel Tower. So you have to get a license for this and everything?
So the rule for the Eiffel Tower is if you take a close-up shot of the lights of the Eiffel Tower by night, you have to pay a fee. If you make a commercial use of the photo, that's the whole idea. If you take it before this, like this photo, before this, because what is copyrighted is not the Eiffel Tower, it's the light on the Eiffel Tower that is considered a piece of art, which is the same thing for the Opera and the Louvre, I think. So, yeah, that's the rule. It's, so, it's about 500 euros, it's about $700 to be able to, so if you want to make like a fine art print of a night photo, but if the Eiffel Tower is small and we cannot distinguish enough the, like, show you as an example, like on this photo, for example, I didn't have to pay any rights because you have to be able to really see. This one, the Eiffel Tower was not light, but like, I'll show you something which is really, this example, right? This one I don't have anything to pay because it's too small. They cannot distinguish enough the lighting, so they wouldn't, it has to be really like, you know, like, if I would do this photo, for example, and it was LED, then yeah, of course I would have a problem. Okay?
Could you Photoshop the light to the point where it's unrecognizable from the
you mean
black and white or?
No, because it's really a work of art. It's thousands of lights. I mean, it would take me days to get a decent result. It's easier to just take it half an hour before, like I did here, for example. I want to show you something which I think it's hard to. It's just a small thing, but if I open up the shadows and bring on the highlights on this one, same thing. It's a bit too much. Split shadows here also with 77R. So I'm just playing around here, you know. And now you see, what I was trying to do on this one was to get you know, frame in a frame again. You know, the thing is we have a little motorbike here which is distracting. This is a bit dark compared to this. We have this stop sign which is really ugly. So what I would do on this one is, one thing I like to do also is, when something is very dark, is to relight it. So this is, like, these walls here are very dark, but I don't mind about that. So the first thing I'm going to do is unbound the profiles correction, which is going to light up a little bit the buildings. Remove chromatic aberration, but watch this. I love this function because before Lightroom 5, we didn't have that. If I click on auto, it just makes all the lines straight. And before I had to go into and do it manually, and it was really a pain. And on this one, it's all about cropping. You see, I have a little motorbike here, so I can just crop this out. I have a little stop sign here. I can just crop this out. You know, maybe I don't like to have this little sidewalk thing, so I'm just going to go like this. And already we have a more decent photo, a more, you know, it's less distracting. Let me see. I don't like to have this Windows half. Yeah, it's probably better.
So you don't use full, because I find full makes it flat.
What?
Full on your lens upright.
You have upright auto
Yeah.
as opposed to
Oh, full. I never use full. No, because it makes it really weird sometimes.
Yeah, it makes it flat. Right?
Yeah, it's really bad.
Straight horizontal.
No. I go for ortho. Yeah, no, full never works for me. Never, ever works for me. I don't know why. This probably will take it. Lightroom 6 is coming out in March, I hear. It's probably coming out.
Do you care about aspect ratio?
No.
I thought so.
I care about do people like the photo or not.
No, I'm serious. If you're going to print it,
No, I know. I don't care. I really don't. Like when I was working with the gallery, that's like, oh man, you got the most exotic. I said, yeah, but that's how that photo works. No, they work it out all the time. Say, okay, fine, we'll print it that way. Yeah. Some people, the galleries I work with or the books I work with is not a problem. So they just leave it to me. So which I appreciate. I want to show you a website which was a super inspiration for me, and talk to you about color depths. 7 designs. I hope I'm still on the web. Okay, we'll let it. Oh, here it is. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, no. It's not color depths. One big problem we have in photography is that everything is 2D. It's very flat. You know, you're taking something that has a lot of depth in real life and you shoot it and it looks flat. That's not what I was looking for. Depths. Where is that? Oh yeah, here. And they made an amazing article about it, creating how you can create depths. They're saying there is different types of depths you can create in the foam art. Depths by atmosphere, depths by color. So let's take one by one. Depths by atmosphere. I think this example is amazing. See how it's very foggy here and it's very clear here. It creates a lot of depth on the photo. Same thing here with that plane. This is from like probably The Lord of the Ring, you know. It's very foggy in the back and very sharp here. Lots of depths. Same thing here, very foggy. Okay, so, and then depths by colors. Now this is the one I use the most. Basically what they say is that if your overall photo is, if your piece of art is very dark, then you should have some magenta and blue at the back. In front you should have some red and orange. Well, let's see the examples that they have. Kung Fu Panda. See how all the animals are very colorful and all the entire back is very magenta. I mean, it's like perfect, you know, exactly applied. And look how much depth there is in that drawing. Look at that. Very cold in the back and very warm in the front. Okay? Ratatouille. You see how the character is very warm, his face is very warm. You know, the hands, the wood is very warm and everything else is very magenta, getting into the warm. You know, just different examples. That website is amazing. It's called 7design.com, and I use that scale a lot. It's hard. So that's why I love to take photos when there is fogs. Like I guess you have a lot of fog in San Francisco here, and I think it's amazing because fog really helps create depth in photography. Like really. Anyways, back to what I want to show you. On this one, I just want to create even more depth between the front of the buildings and the tower that's in the back. So so this one is actually overall pretty dark. Okay, so I want to go for something like this. Basically, I want to go for I'm going to make this just a little warmer and this a little cooler, just to give more depth to the photo. And the way I'm going to do that, instead of touching the white balance, I'm going to leave it as such. Or maybe let's see what shade is going to give me on this one. Yeah, shade's not bad. With a bit of magenta. Let's do the classic formula, but I'm going to go further on that. Because you can paint white balance also. So you can take a brush, make sure you don't use a flow intensity that's too high. So like 60 or 70 is kind of cool. Make sure you go just to like temp. And you can add a bit of magenta. I'm just going to paint in some warm and magenta. But just here a little bit in the sky. Is this really how it was? Okay, sometimes it's very subtle, before, after. Okay, maybe a little bit more warmth. And you can do it by gradient, meaning you can just create a new brush and just get your flow and density a bit stronger, and just here, just there, add a bit more. Just on that part, you know, something like that. So, both before, after, so we added maybe a bit too much on this one, a bit too much magenta. Okay, and then on the buildings, what I would do is I would create a new brush and I would go the opposite. I would take some green, some blue, and just make it a bit colder. And it's very subtle, but it's just going to help, you know, having a bit more depth in your photo. Now the problem is that we don't see much of the building, so this is when the partially lit object comes into view, you know, with this amazing radial filter. So exposure to the right, and I just want, oh sorry, yeah, invert the mask, feathering, just, you know, add a bit of details because it's too dark. If it's too dark, if something you're doing like a framing, because these buildings are really nice in Paris, you know. They're called Haussmann buildings. It was all built by one architect that did over 30,000 buildings in Paris by himself. I'm not kidding. 30,000. They were all on the same model. He actually rebuilt Paris in the 1800s. Named Haussmann. He did an amazing job. And so they all look a bit the same, but they're very nice. So, you know, the fact of adding a bit of warmth and a bit of cold there just, you know, makes color separation. It's very subtle, but it can help. I think on the overall photo I just might add a little bit more vibrance. And one thing you can do sometimes that I do, might work or might not work, is you can turn the lights on. So if you take a brush, you go to exposure, you big exposure, take a flow that's pretty strong, and you just make one big brush stroke. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work. Let's see. Let's add a little bit thick and a little bit of warm maybe. Let's see. Okay, if it's too much, you can just turn it down. Just add a little bit of light, just like it was. Because when the lights in Paris, when they start to be lit, at first they're not very strong, and they get strong in about 10 minutes. So this is how it looks the first minutes, basically. And on this one, I think I would do even more job of making some part of the photo brighter. I would take a brush and probably just, I think this tree that's way too strong. Because this is way too strong. You have to play a lot with the flow and density when you do brush work. I just want to make these trees maybe. Just find this a bit interesting now. We see a bit more what's going on. And the fact that you do it with a brush, it's a bit too much, but yeah, something like that. Something like that. So we have colors which are different from the background, which is, you know, and this is the before, the after. And then you just print it and sell it in galleries. Simple.
$6.7 million.
Huh?
$6.5 million.
Yeah. Any other questions so far?
Yeah. Question.
Yeah.
Would you play with the color depth unnaturally to create effects, like magenta the front, magenta the back? So the tower, for instance.
What I usually like. Remember taking that shot that the sun was coming down and was starting to light the Eiffel Tower, and the Eiffel Tower was very yellow magenta already. You can actually see a little bit how it was. Oh, that's fine. Hold on. Let me turn it off because it's probably. I'm gonna put it on silent mode. Yes. So yeah. No, I wouldn't. I'm just trying to get the feeling that I had when I shot it. It was really like, the problem is like often you shoot a scene and you go on your raw file and it looks like, oh my god, where did the colors go? You know. So I'm just trying to recreate the emotion I had when I shot that photo, and it was really like that. Like my eyes could see very well the buildings I was framing very well, and the Eiffel Tower was very warm, and there was a bit of magenta in the clouds. So I just tried to recreate that.
You're going from that, not for special effects.
No, not on landscape. I try not to do it. I would do it on a portrait or for a wedding or something, but not for the gallery work that I do. No. There was other questions. Yes, sir.
So if you're doing these for a project for a client, would you let the client know that you did substantial post-processing on a picture?
No.
Okay.
No.
So now let's talk about that hotel owner. So you show him one or two pictures, like photographer, which look very good, right? And then he might say, well, let me look at the other picture you've taken, and let's see how they compare. So
they never do that. I just send them to galleries, and that. What did happen is I shoot with the architect, and he looks like on the viewfinder. He wants to look at the viewfinder, but often as I shoot for the highlights, they look very dark, you know, on the backside. So I'm like, yeah, but you know, I have to develop them basically. It's a develop. You know, what I'm doing here is developing. I don't know if you guys studied, you know, what you know, Ansel Adams or Henri Cartier-Bresson, how they used to do it, but they were doing that with their own ways. But you know, they had this magnifier. I don't know how you. Enlarger, yeah, where they would project the image on a very sensitive paper to make a bigger print. But while they were doing that, they were cutting, like for example, the spoon. You know, if they wanted to, because as it prints, it gets darker and darker. So let's say a man was there and they wanted the face of the man to be brighter, so they would have like a little spoon that they would shake like this. So that, because if you don't shake it, it just makes a circle. So you want to have it further. And so the light that was projecting on that paper was not influencing the paper, and the result was that the light, the face of the person was dodged. And if you looked at some of the, like we dodged the light doesn't get to that, so it makes it brighter. And you burn the light, it makes it darker. That's where dodge invert came from. And they used to do it so much. I had a friend who was retouching photos for Henri Cartier-Bresson in 1970. He would be spending days on one photo. Like, we're kids I'm a kid compared to what they used to do. She was showing me, he would make over 200 circles, saying, I want +2 exposure there, -1 exposure there, +1 like this. And I'm not talking about the Hollywood movie star photos where they used to take, like, with needles, all the grain spots of the skin. I mean, we've been retouching from day one. And actually, so we have all this, because it was shot on film, it was like, but they just had a hard time because they didn't have Photoshop, but it's the same thing,
You have, for your architects, you're shooting for the highlights, and it's going to be dark. Can't you, since that's just a JPEG representation on the back of your camera, can't you adjust what's shown out there? So
I did it sometimes, like for example, I would do the proper white balance, or overexpose it a little bit so you would see,
so
like,
they would see what they're really going to be sort of getting.
Yeah, exactly. But I used to tell them, listen, you're not going to appreciate it because let me do my thing and I'll send you a gallery and it'll be retouched and, But they hired me because they saw my other work, So, I was just wondering, who in the room is like a professional photographer who makes a living full-time as a photographer? Part-time. Okay. So most of you are hobbyists or, semi-pro. And anybody wants to become professional, go from the standards of just making a living out of it. Okay. I just want to share a couple of things that have worked for me on that, if you don't mind. There's not much people that want to go pro. Nobody wants to make money by doing photographies all day? Huh? Okay. It's a great job. Like, why I'm saying that, I did a little show on that a couple of days ago. Because every day a lot of people send me their website. Oh, look, I did some of these tutorials. Here's what I do. And the biggest mistakes I see people doing when they do photography, and the one reason I get hired a lot is because I have a website that only has about 20 photos per category, like Paris, Venice, landscape, and it's really my best shots. I shot 120,000 photos of Paris. I've only put 20 there. There's a lot of ugly shots in there. So I only show my best work. And the thing is, what I see people doing is they have this website where they have like 10 amazing photos, 2, 3 a bit average, one that's really not nice. And it's like, it's better to have just 5 photos, which are just like amazing, than 20 when only 5 is amazing. Because people will get stuck on that one photo that's not nice. And that's the only thing they will look at, that one photo that's not nice. And like, especially if you do weddings, for example. If you should do weddings, you gotta put your best work out there. Because, if I want to hire, I'm just gonna look for that one photo that's not good, and I'm gonna be worried that this is gonna be my turn to get a bad photo, So, like Scott Cabby was telling me the story, because he's been doing photography so many years, he's got lots of nice photos. So he's got 20, I think it is, or 22, I forgot, per category. Every time he adds one photo, he says one has to go out. So he has to kill one of his photos to put a new photo there. It's the rule. Not more than 22, and they've got to be your best work. So what I do is I have 2 websites. Because the problem that I have is I made a very interesting deal with an editor recently, and it says, yeah, on your website there's only 7 photos of Paris. Like, can I see some more of your work, please? And so I have the SergeRamelliPhotos.com, which is just a show-off website, 15, 20 photos per category, just my best work. And I did this with Squarespace because I find it's just super easy, And it's really what I consider my best work. But if somebody wants, Frederick? 10 minutes? Good. Oh, I have one more thing to show then. I'm going to go fast. I want to show you the black and white. And this is 500px, because I use a lot of 500px community to see what photo works and don't work. So I've got a lot of photos there. So like Paris, for example, instead of having just 15 or 20 photos, I have a lot more. It's kind of like the best work of the years, But then, if somebody wants to make a big article on Paris, they have more choice. but I would only show it in that case. You know, like my official on my postcard, like on my visit card or carte de visite. Business card. That's what I was looking for. Okay, that's very important. It's just one little thing, but it just can make the difference between, like, when agencies are looking for, oh, say, no, he's an amateur. Oh, he's a pro. And what they determine that is, you know, pros don't have much photos and they got just the best work out there. Like, sometimes it's only 5 photos, but it's just the best. Like, I showed like a very big agency with like very big photo, and they only had 12 photos each. And that's it. You know, so it's like, don't send a Flickr page or, you know, less is better in this case. Okay, last, let's talk about dramatic black and white. I love this because I have a rule in photography, which is that if the colors are not amazing, then I go black and white. And I shot this in Paris actually pretty early, and the light just went off, and it was a boring light. It was like nothing special. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a dramatic black and white like Ansel Adams used to do. So I put up the shadows, I bring on the highlights, I do my little white and black like this, and I get my saturation to come down. I'm starting off with a very grayish photo. That's very important. You should never start your black and white conversion with a photo like this, like with a lot of contrast. I actually go with a minus contrast. Okay, let me do the, because that's really annoying me, let me do the upright function. And let's just take that out of the frame. So I'm just trying to get a very boring grayish type of look to start with. And, oh sorry, there's a couple of spots. I didn't clean my sensor that day, I'm sorry for that. Okay, once I've got my basic grayish, very ugly black and white, all I did was desaturate. I didn't do anything. Then usually that's when I jump into Tonality Pro. That's the software that Frederick was talking about. It's an amazing software. It actually was made by the guys that created Nik software. They sold to Google, became very rich, and then created Mac Fun. And it's a Mac-only software. It's not for PC, unfortunately. And I asked them why. It's because it's apparently the way you program a PC and Mac is very different, and so they it would be a lot of work for them to put it for PC a lot more because I don't know. Anyways, so and they have amazing things. They have layers, and I think it's a $40 software. It's not a big deal, but what they have is you'll see. It's pretty cool. So usually what I do on the first layer, I would play around with, again, what I like to call a double development. Like I did already developed in Lightroom, but I keep on doing it here a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little bit of clarity on this one. Just overall, just a little bit. Maybe no, that's about it. On the basic layer, I'm not going to do much. Then I'm going to do some, I'm going to start bringing drama in the sky with the, I'm going to lower the smart, the adaptive exposure. I'm going to lower the adaptive, because I love the way the adaptive exposure works. It just makes things darker, but on a much gradient. But I don't want it everywhere. So I'm going to use here, they have a gradient like in Lightroom, and now that adaptive is only being applied here, unless it bugs. In which case it's not nice. What's going on? Okay, let me just see what's going on here. That is strange. Okay, you can do it with the brush too. Let's see if there's a problem with the brush. Like right now, that adaptive is being applied everywhere, and if I brush, yeah, it's only going to be where I brush. You see what I mean? And you can even lower the opacity, but that's not the main reason why I use them, which I really love. Actually, I'm going to put this back here. I usually do it one more time. And so adaptive exposure. Again, I'm just going to brush a little bit the top and a bit the bottom. I'm just trying to close the photo. I just love this adaptive exposure, but what I really love is they have these presets. So I create an empty layer, and I'm going to use, for example, the HDR Classic. Now, the whole photo looks very ugly. That's really the HDR look that I hate. But now, if I take a brush and make my brush very soft, and the opacity of my brush very slow, I'm painting just on the building some HDR, and only on the buildings. And I'm gonna lower the size of my brush. And let me show you before, after. See the difference? I'm only bringing the HDR, and if it's too much, I can lower even the entire layer. And I love to do that because especially when you have buildings, it just makes a really nice difference. And then I'm going to do the opposite now. I'm going to use their adaptive exposure to the left, put it back on the brush, and I'm just going to use it where I brush. So maybe just here, a little bit here, a little bit here, maybe here and here. What's going on? Yeah. I'm like dodging burning, but just I can do this in Lightroom, but I'm doing a book right now in New York, and I'm doing so much. I just do everything in TWiP Pro because they have this. I love being able to just add a bit of HDR, which is like very heavy contrast, just on some of the buildings, and just that makes really the photo pop a lot more. And yeah, I'm gonna make this. Yeah, it's a bit too much overall. Let's see. And yeah, before, after. I would go even more crazy on this. Add one more layer. Make this standard exposure. Let's see. And make this brush smaller. I want to add drama in the sky. Oops. Just, oh, my softness is not good. Yeah, it's good. Okay. Just trying to make the sky a bit more interesting. And bits by bits, and that's what Ensalada used to do a lot. Like he used to say, oh, I want this to be just a bit brighter and this a bit. But he didn't have that HDR function. We really mixed anything which is building stand out a lot. Like especially on big, you have to see it like when you're on big prints, it's like a small screen, but it makes a big difference. And usually what I do is I would continue in Lightroom. So this is like my first pass at it. So I'm going to apply this. And I'm going to do some more dodge and burn. Because you see, if I would just do an overall contrast on this photo, it's kind of cool, but it just looks even more organic when you do it with a brush, because you really decide where you want the eyes of the viewer to go to. And it makes a big difference. So you start with a very grayish photo, and locally you build this. Yes, sir?
Why did you choose to kill the saturation instead of using the black and white button when you first started?
Because you get less, you know, when you have this gradient that looks awful sometimes, you know, in the sky, with when you use that slider in Lightroom or in Photoshop, what that does is that it increases like the blue values or the red values, and it makes artifacts. When you make big prints, I very, very often had bad surprises, especially in the skies. How do you call that? Bending, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So that happens with the black and white.
Yeah, it happens a lot. When you decelerate, it just almost never happens. So, and now it's going to come back. Voila. And I usually give a little second pass. I usually lower again the exposure again, and I do my circles after I've done the TWiP Pro, and invert the mask for way too much. Just make it more shell. That's way too much. Something like this. Duplicate, and sometimes I spend a bit of time on that because it just makes nice prints. This makes nice photo. Just trying to make you know, the lights a bit more solid. I'm going to take a brush. I'm hurrying up because time is running out.
Also adds depth of field.
What?
Also adds depth of field.
Yeah. I'm just trying to complexify the light, making a, you know, something like this. You know, that's the general idea. Let me show you the before. That's the original shot. And, you know, 4 minutes of work, that's the final shot. Much more pleasing. So maybe then at the end I would just add a bit of contrast. That's about it. That's my basic workflow on doing black and white. So, you know all my secrets now. I have done what... And it's yeah, we're 5 minutes to finish, so let's finish on more questions because I don't have any more photos to show you.
So on this black and white, you would not pay attention to that. You have basically everything covered from the total white to total black. So in here, when you look at the histograms, there are no white.
I did it at first. I did mine.
Yeah, but now in your histogram, when I look right on the right side, there's nothing. There's no white. You don't care about that.
No, because you see, if I do that, I think it's just too.
Yeah, of course you have to do it very subtle, right, and very pointed.
Yeah, it's just because the photo is pretty dark. So if you try to go for 100% white, it's just a bit too contrasty. I do it until I like it. You know, if I don't like it so much, like I don't like that, so I like that.
Of course,
it's much more velouté. I don't know how you say that in English, but I don't know. And the thing is, usually I redo it when I print it. Like I do a print, and it's like, oh, it's usually because when you print, it's always coming too dark because this is backlit. The paper is not backlit, so I always add about 10% of luminosity before I print and a bit more sharpening. But now I work with a gallery and they do the print. I just give them the best TIFF file that they can, and they do their magic and they do the prints for me. And they're doing a really good job. Usually I'm very happy with them, with the prints. But, you know, it's a very easy way to create drama, you know, and the good thing about black and white is it's the only time you can shoot during the day. If you've got interesting sky, you can do black and white at any time because you don't care about the colors. When you do sunset or sunrises, which I do most of the time, you have to have nice colors. With black and white, this photo can look amazing on the cover of a magazine or whatever, you know. And I sold it actually to the gallery, and it's the rule, you know. If the colors are not interesting, go black and white.
So you started off, of course, with a color image because that's what cameras shoot. But when you converted to black and white, did you use your adjustments based on color to get the effect you wanted in the black and white image to start with?
No, I looked at the photo and I thought, oh, I know there is no, like when I shot it, I know this was going to be black and white. I know there was no colors there. It was boring.
Did you ever shoot monochrome camera?
No. No, because I like the power of doing this, you know. Especially, I spent quite some time studying Ansel Adams' workflow and what they call the zone system and how you used to do it. And plus work with Jean-Michel Bertz, who did mimic Ansel Adams' work. And he was doing it, it's just like, I mean, Ansel Adams would be like, he would have an amazing YouTube channel with Lightroom, I can tell you that. He would be so happy to have Lightroom. Because what he was going through to get that result, hours of work. And he was not doing it, he was actually had 2 people doing it for him. Which were amazing developers, I don't know what you call that. In French we call that developers. Yeah. Yeah, but they would do them. But he had the eye, you know, he would say, you know, just add a little bit of light here, just there, and add a bit of light there, and add a bit, you know, make this a bit more grayish, you know. And so, any other questions before we wrap up? About Paris, about photos, about anything? Are you guys from around here, most of you?
Yeah. The question is curious. Since you share so much of your work, do you ever have a problem with copyright, people stealing your work?
I've given over 200 raw files to the web, and when I give the raw files, I'm like, this is gonna... The problem that I had is, like, galleries wanted to hire me, like, buy some of my prints, which I gave the raw files about, so that was a bit tricky. No, you know, the only thing that happens, people would retouch my raw files, put them on 500px, and just credit me as a photographer, but that's retouched by them. I don't think they, you know, ask people not to sell it. You know, there is my metadata about me. Scott Kelby had this funny joke. He was saying, you know, I dream that somebody's going to steal one of my photos. Because the only time you're going to make money on this is like Microsoft will never steal one of your photos. You know, because they have rules that, I mean, when I worked for Nike, I had to sign so many papers that had the copyright for this and copyright for that. The people that have money are very careful about their things. You know, the only people who's going to steal your photo is some guy who's going to put on his own personal portfolio 500px page. That's been my experience. I never had a problem with it. I gained so much by giving and sharing. You know, I gave over 200 raw files on the web. And so it made my YouTube channel popular. It made me popular. That's how I got an amazing book deal, 71 galleries, you know. So the plus and the minus, you know, the plus was victory. Any other questions, mesdames et messieurs?
So do you have an agent who works between you and your gallery contacts?
I have an agent in Paris, but he did not get me the job of the gallery because I got the deal directly. and I was a bit upset because honestly, he was not doing a very good job. He was not getting me a lot of job, and they just. It's funny how I got the gallery. How I got the gallery, I was with Jean-Michel Bertz, and they wanted to have Jean-Michel Bertz. But he was already selling photos for $4,000 per photo in many galleries around the world. New York, Berlin, Paris. And they're selling $1,000. And he was like, he's saying, you know, there's no way I can work with you guys because I would lose all my galleries. They would be upset that my work now becomes from $4,000 to $1,000. So he says, why don't I can make photos for you, but under a different name, and then that would work. So I said, oh, why not? Then he made a few shots and said, no, we want your name. He was like, okay, well, I'm not giving you my name. So he says, but I have a friend who does a very similar type of work. You might like his work, and they present me, and that's how I got the job. And I've been writing them for 8 years straight, because it's the biggest gallery. I knew that, like, I met a couple of guys that were key photographers, and they were making amazing money with the galleries and stuff, and I was like, wanted to get there. And so that's how I got in. And he introduced me, and then they tested 3 photos, because they had very artsy type of photos, and they had amazing galleries, like, in very well located, and they never dared to do, like, postal card. They didn't want to have a photo of the Eiffel Tower. But then they tried to put a photo in the Eiffel Tower, and it became bestseller. It's like, okay, well, maybe we'll, you know, so they tried 3 photos, and then they ordered me 28 photos. They bought 28 photos, like, you sign a contract per photo that's going to go in all of the galleries, and then, like, 2 weeks later, that was amazing. 2 weeks later, Ten House, which is like a bit Taschen, but a bit smaller than Taschen. The owner contacted me, saying, Agil, I saw you work on Paris. It's amazing. I want to do a book on Paris. And I was about, Yellow Corner had me signed with Flammarion, which is the biggest French editor, but it's only a national French editor to make a book on Paris. And I said, I cannot. I signed with Flammarion, and I'm about to sign. It was like the next day. He said, don't sign. I'm coming down. And like, it's the owner in New York, or, you know, like, his office in New York, but he was in Berlin. And he flew over with 3 guys so that I wouldn't sign, and I signed with them. And so we did a co-thing. We co-distributed the books with Yellow Corner because they wanted to get involved. And now they're working with Yellow Corner because I presented them. So Yellow Corner was really happy because I presented them an amazing publisher. And just that happened because I had the YouTube channel, and it just created, you know, indexing and buzz about me. And now I get to do a book in Paris, New York. You know, I'm trying to close them in San Francisco because I think the Bay Area is amazing. And we'll see, because the books are like, you know, big coffee table books. You know, they're about $60 per book. And so I'm very excited about that because, yeah, it's just, you know, I've always dreamed to make coffee table books and have my work in galleries, and now it's happening, and I'm so really happy. But it's, you know, it's just, you know, if you do your passion, people will respond to that. That's my idea. Steve Jobs used to say, you know, if you do what you like in life, you'll do good because you do it with heart. And I think that a lot. That's when I heard him saying this, like, oh, I got to stop being a VP. So I've been selling all my life since I was a kid. And now I'm making a lot more money as a photographer than I ever was as a salesman. You know, so that's life. Voila, mesdames et messieurs. Any other questions before we wrap up? Frederick, are we about time? Good. Yeah, I'm done, basically. Thank you.
Very good.
Sure. You may.
You rock. You rock. All right, another round of applause for this guy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cool. See, every time I listen to you, Serge, I want to go, like, jump in and try to do that stuff, but it never comes out like that.
You gotta keep
Somehow
trying.
it never comes out like that. No matter how many videos of yours I watch, it never comes out like that. So thank you for coming. I
Okay,
appreciate
great.
it.
No problem.
And thank you all for coming. We've got gifts to give away, and there's still lots of wine over there, by the way, if you haven't partaken of the great wine. So what we're going to do is give away all the stuff real quick. But I need to make sure that everyone that's here has signed in and your name is checked off on the list. So if you haven't signed in, let Nicole know so she can, because that's how I'm picking winners. We're doing a 1 through top number of people who showed and checked in, and we're just going to randomly pick folks from that. So Nicole, what's the final number?
48.
48 people showed up today. All right. So our starting number is 1. Ending number is 48. Are you talking in the front of the class?
Is that the same program you used on the earlier meetings?
No, this is called Winning Ticket.
Oh.
See that? I just downloaded this today. Winning ticket. It's easy. You put in the starting number, ending number, and then hit the button and go. Okay. So here we go. The first winner is number 19.
Number 19 is
Sanjeev. Oh, there's Sanjeev. You are winning Learning to Photograph Volume 1 from Rocky Neck Publishing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, the next one. God, this is so much easier.
What was his last name?
The next one is number number 3 is the next one. Number 3. Say again? Jeff Bentz. All right. Photographic composition from Rocky Neck Publishing. Look at that. Can't go wrong with that. Here you go, sir. Congratulations. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
All right, next number. I'm pushing. Look, not cheating. 22. David. Well, look at that. Then you get to capture the magic. Capturing the magic from Rocky Neck. Look at that. Thank you, sir. You're welcome, sir. He showed up early. He's the first one here, so he better have won something. All right. Next one is number 27. Number 27. Hail Timothy. A.K.A. Tim. He wins The Essence of Photography by Bruce Barnbaum. Seeing and Creativity. Look at that. You're welcome, sir. All right. The next winner is going to win this 16 by 24 thin wrap from our friends at Big Photo, and that's number 36. Oh, the couple. Yes. Yes. Well, you can both share it together. Presumably you cohabitate. Well, you can put it on your side of the bed. Thanks. Awesome. Congratulations. All right. There's a couple more things here. So, black and white, from snapshots to great shots, from our friends at Peach Pit Press. The DVD, if you can still play optical media. 31. Number 31. All right, next one is People Pictures from my good friend Mr. Chris Orwig. People Pictures. 32. Number 32. There you go. Congratulations. All right, next one. Another friend of mine, Mr. Iberinex Perello, host of The Candid Frame, Chasing the Light, Photography and the Practice of Seeing. Number 5. Number 5. Say again? Cynthia. Here you go. Congratulations. You're welcome. Here. All right, a couple more. All right, this next one is... Who here has a 13-inch MacBook Pro? Anybody? All right. Well, this is from our friends at Jelliskins. This is a 13-inch MacBook Pro cover for your computer. It is an exploded Nikon camera. All of the pieces. And we were like, whatever. If you don't have a Nikon, give it to your friends who have one. 35. Number 35. There you go. Do you actually have a Nikon? You do? Oh, perfect. Look at that. All right, the last prize tonight is Tonality Pro from our friends at MacFun, as demonstrated by Mr. Serge Ramelli on stage here. The next frontier in black and white photography. Here we go. Ready? Number 11. Number 11. Alfred! Look at that. Congratulations, sir. There you go. And all you guys, thank you for coming out to this. I am blown away that we had like a full house tonight. This has been perfect. I hope you guys had at least one glass of wine or some water and some food. If not, grab one on your way out, but don't drink it while you're driving. And have a good night, and thanks for coming. We'll see you at the next one.
See you.